A little more than 10 years ago, I first read about Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. My life, like many of yours, was turned upside down when the oldest of my 3 children, Jeremy, was affected at age 19. Brain tumor, optic neuritis, MS, neuromyelitis optica, all were proposed as the cause of Jeremy's sudden, painless loss of central vision, first in one eye, then several weeks later the other. Eventually, LHON became the clear diagnosis, and while Jeremy was the one who had to deal with the sudden vision loss and all that goes with that, I was racing to stay one step ahead of his many needs: medical, financial, education, transportation, friends. This image captures what happened to us. We have been plunged into an emotional canyon, and my job was to get Jeremy up to the other side as quickly and with as few emotional bruises as possible. When it happened, Jeremy was a 19-year-old who was shocked, in denial, angry, and then depressed. I found a blind psychologist who worked especially well with young men, who helped Jeremy work through his many emotions and finally to acceptance. We found many ways for him to live a normal life. My husband, who had had no idea what to do when this happened to Jeremy, found that he didn't lose his golf buddy. What happened was he found a partner, and my husband now guides Jeremy around the golf course, and they compete together as a team in World Blind Golf Championships and U.S. Tournaments. And they have a lot of fun doing that together. And Jeremy's had a great opportunity to meet other people with other causes of vision loss. Jeremy's now a professional inspirational speaker, and he shares his story to raise awareness about LHON and to help people understand about legal blindness, because most people really don't know anything about it. One of the things that really helped my son was to find purpose. And for him, purpose was to do everything in his power to find a treatment for LHON. Because of course we realized that when he became affected, his brother and sister and I must of course carry the same mutation he carries. We're all at risk. And so he has found it to be his purpose to do everything he can to raise money, to raise awareness, to help the researchers, to do everything to raise money to help bring things along, to find a cure. Last year, 10 years ago, his friends from college created a bike ride. They called it the Cure Ride, and it stands for Cycling Under Reduced Eyesight. And for 10 years in a row, Jeremy and his friends have ridden their bikes along the California coastline, raising awareness of LHON and raising money. They've raised over $250,000 US for LHON research over the years. And we know that raising money to help researchers find a cure is really important, but what we also learned is having purpose in your life is really important. And by doing this bike ride together with friends every year, they're doing something larger than themselves. And his friends, who in the beginning didn't know why they were cycling other than to help a buddy, they've learned what LHON is, and they're helping a cause larger than themselves, which is a great thing for people to learn. And they have fun doing it. And like I said, they do it every year. It gives them a reason to get together and to share an experience together. So I think, like so many things with LHON, you can start with one reason, to raise money, for instance, and it turns into something so much more. And again, his friends have been exposed to somebody with a disability. They really wouldn't have had that without this experience. So they're committed to doing this year after year until there's a cure. So for me personally, what happened was I was racing to try and stay one step ahead of my son's needs and helping overcome the obstacles that he was running into. And I would tell my friends what I was doing and what I found, and they said, "Lissa, you should write a book." And I said, "Books sit on a bookshelf, people have to pay for them." So I wanted to make sure that the information would be available at no cost, and I figured I'd be learning a lot quickly. So I decided to create a website, and I created a website called LHON-dagarna, and I started taking information that I was finding from the doctors and just from our family's experience and other people that I was meeting, and I tried to synthesize the collective wisdom and put that on a website so that other people could find it around the world. Helen is nodding, going, yep, finding it around the world, but that was the whole point, right? Because how else would I have met you if I didn't create a website like this? And that was the point, right? To find other people who were having the same experience. Now, you guys did something that I'm very impressed by, which is you very quickly created the LHON-I Society. I didn't go down the path of creating a nonprofit group. I was running too far, too fast, and wasn't sure that I had the time or the lifespan to create a nonprofit that would endure. So I looked around for existing nonprofit organizations with which I could coexist and collaborate. And in the United States, there is a group called UMDF, United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation. It took me a while to realize that it took a while to understand LHON, and then even longer to understand that at the fundamental level, we're a mitochondrial disease. So by partnering with UMDF, I would come into contact with people dealing at the broadest level with the same issues that I'm dealing with, that we're all dealing with. So I created an association with UMDF, and that's been great because putting on a conference like this requires a lot of energy and effort that I get to lean on the strength of UMDF. They already have an annual conference for all the mitochondrial diseases, and I just tacked on an LHON piece to it. And so in 2013, we had a half-day meeting like this. I invited some of the researchers and some patients, and it was amazing and wonderful. And so we've been doing it every year after that. And it's great because you get people like Andreas who are adventuresome and show up in the United States at a conference with us, and it's just great fun to have and all of you are welcome. We'll be in DC later this month. We'll be in Phoenix, Arizona next year, but it's always open to anyone, and you just have a wide range of people like you have here with experiences with LHON. Five years ago, there were 3 people who attended one of the conferences, and they said, "We can't wait another year to do this. We have to find a way to keep talking." So they proposed doing a teleconference. And so we set a day and a time, and they created a format, And we've modified the format over the years, but for 5 years, every first Wednesday of every month at a time that's terribly inconvenient for you, but 5 o'clock in California where I live and 8 o'clock on the East Coast, people get on the phone and we talk about various issues about living with LHON. Just the other night was summer fun. Before that it was technology. Often we interview people and learn each other's stories. So we have these kinds of conversations. You have a very strong group. You have your LHON iSociety Facebook group. There is also a global group, and if you are not yet a member, please consider joining. It's Leber's Hereditary Optic Neuropathy, LHON Blind, and it's got over 4,000 members, so the conversations are robust. People are talking about every subject of interest, and I mean, it's great. We're crowdsourcing 4,000 people who have a common interest, and so I think it's great to have local information and global information from as many people as possible. We've also started developing Facebook groups on a wide variety of topics, and again, there's no geographic restriction. We absolutely welcome anybody and everybody to join if it's appropriate for your situation. For instance, we have a dads of affected kids of all ages. And again, everything starts organically. We had a guy in our group who said, I think dads process the pain of having an affected child differently than women, and it would be nice to be able to talk about it with other dads. So we created a Facebook group for that. We have a phone call just for that, the third Wednesday of every month, same time. Inconvenient for you, I'm so sorry. But again, the Facebook group is there, and the guys are happy to include anyone who's a dad of someone who's affected and share connections and support. And then again, spontaneously, other ideas arise. So if you're a mom of a kid of any age, I mean, my son is now 29, but he's my affected kid. So I belong in that group. But if any of you are moms of a kid of any age who's affected, there's a group that I just helped somebody sign up for at lunch today. And then another one for LHON affected women, just signed somebody up for that. So if you're a woman and you're affected by LHON, some folks find that group to be particularly helpful because maybe putting on makeup with vision loss isn't something you want to have a broader discussion about. So we put that group there. Then some of the parents who were worrying about education, navigating education, we have a group for that. Employment, I don't know about you guys, but folks in the US have challenges maintaining or obtaining employment with vision loss. So that's a group where, and again, all these conversations do happen in the main global group, but it's sometimes nice to have a targeted group in addition. So it's not instead of, but it's in addition to. Just a quick talk about some of the projects we've done. I know you guys have done a lot of great projects. One of the ones that I really enjoyed doing a few years ago was we got a grant to do the LHON genealogy project. I was telling some folks at lunch that my mother is her mother, her grandmother. So my great-grandmother came to the US from Denmark. So I was very interested in trying to connect with relatives that way, but I didn't know how to do it. We did an LHON genealogy project where we engaged a professional genealogist, and she worked with several LHON families and helped them develop their maternal family trees, partly so they could just know who in their extended family history had lost vision, but also so they could identify distant cousins and maybe warn people who might carry the mutation and not know it, because if you do know you have a mutation and you lose vision, the diagnostic process is so much faster. But then again, when you find this distant relative and you want to tell them, it can be a difficult conversation. So we added another piece to it with a genetic counselor, and she explained how to tell family members. We created a video that you can send to your family members in English about it, but all of these videos are on the LHON.org website. They're on YouTube, and if that's of interest to you, it's available. Another thing we do as a project is we're trying to raise awareness of LHON in the medical community, the correct medical community, which is the best point people at least to start, are neuro-ophthalmologists, and they have an annual meeting called NANOS, North American Neuro-Ophthalmology Society. So I have been going there every year for the last 5 years, and I engage in conversations with the neuro-ophthalmologists. I hand them a brochure. I let them know we exist so that when they encounter patients in the LHON community, they can guide them to our conferences, to our Facebook group, so that we can provide support. So in terms of, what have we accomplished in the last 10 years since I first heard about LHON? We've done a lot in the world of research. Santhera, of course, has been doing the LAROS trial, and we've done a lot to identify patients who might be appropriate for that trial and inform them about it, who might otherwise not have known. There have been probably 200 individuals enrolled in various gene therapy trials, and again, telling people about them so they have the opportunity to participate is something we do a lot of. Supporting other research, it was talked earlier, awareness, trying to raise awareness through the website, through the videos of our conferences, and then just providing support through all the Facebook groups that I was mentioning, doing things like this, just showing up places where there's going to be people affected by LHON and building conversation. And then in terms of the future, we're going to continue to connect potential participants with trials, continue to support LHON research, and very much try to translate patient insights to clinical care. What I mean by that is, one thing that really troubles me specifically is when people refer to LHON as a young man's disease. And I'm looking in a room where I know many women are affected, and I know that it's harder for women to get diagnosed. I know it's harder to get a diagnosis if you're older or younger than the typical ages, and that's starting to change, but the more we can communicate that. Recently we've been doing some looking at the community, and it's really become clear that people talk about the peak in onset in the 15 to 35 age group, but what's really happening is if you break it into men and women, it's completely different. If you look just at the men, the peak is 14 to 26. If you look at women, it's almost a flat line throughout the lifetime. But because there's 3 times as many men as women, people see what happens to the men and they don't break it apart, because the sample sizes are usually so small that they can't see what's happening with women alone. But with the larger sample, we can demonstrate this and bring this to awareness, and hopefully that leads to better clinical care. And the more we raise these issues, it will be easier for women and younger and older patients to get a diagnosis. Developing educational materials that people can use. And then the US is a big place, and when we have an annual conference, we can't really, people can't really get to the location wherever it is. So we try to have local, regional meetings. And then again, globally, doing like this, I've had the privilege of making connections with others in the LHON community all around the world. It started back in 2010, just the year after my son lost vision, and when he participated in his first World Blind Golf Championships in the UK, I reached out to a few people I had found online and asked if they wanted to get together. And sure enough, somebody who's now on the board of the group in the UK said, sure, why not? Showed up at the train station, spent the night with us, hung out. So we started building connections that way. When my daughter was studying in France a few years ago, I scheduled a visit to go to the Ouvrir les Yeux meeting in Paris to build those relationships. And this photo is from last December, when the gentleman sitting on the stairs, Mario, put together the first Brazil conference, and he said, you know, would you like to go? And my daughter and I said, sure, why not? We didn't understand the Portuguese any better than I'm understanding the Swedish, but I understand the feeling of connection and what we're all living and what we're experiencing. And I just think these connections, it goes back to something that Vanessa said from Santhera, that as patients we have the ability to connect with each other, with doctors, and these situations are valuable for that. So again, I realize that LHON impacts people and families around the world. I enjoy being a part of developing connections and relationships around the world, and I thank you again for inviting me to be a part of this great event. Thank you.